When the Soviet Union finally collapsed in 1991, several states emerged, with Russia being the major parent state. The emergence of these new states led to the rising of many border issues. Russia has been constantly at war with many nations over border issues, and the Ukraine incident is not just a first, but just a tip of what Russia was and will be. We are told that its invasion of Ukraine will not be the last one, but just a sign of what it has already started. You will not believe some of the nations that Russia is going to invade. They might look surprisingly impossible to invade or invaluable, but yes, Russia is on a mission to take them back. We urge you to stick to this video till the end so that you don't miss any interesting bits of this video. Some people will term Russia as a country that has a big greed to acquire many territories and have infinite control over them. Yes, we agree with all of you. Russia has been on a mission to reclaim its territories back, and it's even ready to risk its economic state just to have them. Its invasion in Ukraine has not been the first, yet Russia held major with some of the superpowers in the past. Allow us to have a little preview of them. First, let's look at its disputes with one of its greatest allies, China. It might be unexpected to you, but these two greatest allies have in the past had bitter woes. Russia has been China's biggest and most ferocious ally, even helping the CCP to rise in power in the very beginning. Despite the two nations being heavy allies in the mid-1950s, Moscow and Beijing began to drift ideologically over what they perceived as the future direction of communism. China at that point favored continued aggression towards imperialist nations, while the USSR began to consider peaceful coexistence with the United States. It's actually funny to think of the Soviet Union as a mild-tempered one here. In no time, however, the ideological differences between the two nations rose very quickly and started to result in both the Chinese and the Soviets competing for territory and control of communist satellite states. It was a battle for who could become the leader of communism in the New World. What started as a veiled competition soon lost its veil. By the 1960s, Moscow and Beijing boasted very direct and public critiques of each other in the media. This added to the collapse of the diplomatic relations between the nations, with Russia even recalling thousands of Soviet advisors from China. They even went on to cancel the economic and military aid that they had always provided to China. Now, what led to their final rivalry? In March of 1969, along the Ussuri River, was a poorly demarcated border between the Soviet Union and northeast China. And what could be solved through talks suddenly became a blazing fire. Another incident was that of Russia and Japan. So what was the reason for their conflicts? The heavily debated Kuril Islands, of course. If you didn't know, this has always been one of the biggest rivals that made the fiercest conflicts emerge. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi revived Tokyo's claims on the southern Kurils, the disputed area, describing the region which it refers to as its northern territories as an integral part of the Pacific state. With the havoc that Russia was raining on Ukraine, it only made sense that other nations with whom Russia had border issues with were especially sensitized to the matter. And as usual, Russia has been a country that never listened nor gave in to negotiations. In fact, Russia withdrew from all peace talks with Japan. To add insult to injury, Russia began to conduct military drills in the disputed region, in what was meant to be a show of force against both Japan and the Western Bloc. We are all familiar with what is currently happening in Ukraine. As a small country to Russia, Ukraine has been doing well in terms of economic development. Russia has been regarding Ukraine to be one of its own, and has been on the verge to acquire it. Not just a part of it, but Ukraine as a whole nation. Putin's invasion of Ukraine has had much to do with his desire for its resources, and this includes its citizens too. Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022, upon Vladimir Putin's announcement of a special military operation seeking the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. The seeds of this war were sown in 2013, when Moscow persuaded Ukraine's pro-Russian leader to scrap a planned act with the European Union, prompting protests that ultimately brought him down and led to Russia seizing Crimea and staging a land grab in the east. Ukraine has fought back courageously against Mr. Putin's warped bid to restore territory lost to Moscow, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, and has continued to defy the odds by defending itself against Russian onslaughts with the help of Western military aid. Much of the fighting has been concentrated around the key eastern city of Bakhmut of late, with bombardments and heavy artillery fire taking place as Russian forces ramp up a major new offensive with the 1 year of war looming. Apart from the three nations we have just talked about, Russia has also had a few minor disputes with countries you could not even expect. Let's begin with their arch-nemesis, the United States. Russia challenges the United States over the ownership of Alaska. Alaska became the 49th state of the US in 1959 and is located in the northwest region of North America. It was acquired by the United States in 1867 from Russia. However, even after this, most Russians didn't recognize the sale of Alaska, and they even claim that Russia never got paid, or that it was only a 99-year lease that ended very many decades ago. It was also a great disappointment to the United States that Russia also refused to recognize the USSR-USA Maritime Boundary Agreement. Russia now demands huge swathes of ocean and possibly some islands, and even all of Alaska as payment. Not only that, many Russians have already laid claim to Hawaii and Northern California, because Russia had some military presence there in the 19th century. Still, in North America, Russia also had a maritime border dispute with Canada. Russia claims some kind of exclusive rights to a huge part of the Arctic Ocean that are not Russian according to any international treaties. In the past also, the Russian Navy has promised to sink foreign ships that dare to set course through their waters. The list continues, and next on Russia's list of disputes is Norway. The Soviet Union occupied a small part of Finnmark, Norway, at the end of the Second World War. After the war ended, however, Russia refused to return it. This has been known as one of the lighter border disputes because, though Norway demands the land returned, they're not very pushy about it. This is in large part because the land is worthless, and this has to make you wonder why Russia would even risk diplomatic relations by holding on to something useless. Russia has even got far more offended when Norway conducts its business on its islands and outposts. Russia's next border and territory issue is with Finland. During the Second World War, something that is becoming a bit of a trend in our discussion today, Russia annexed about 10% of Finnish territory. To this day, that land is not returned and the Finns want it back. Russia's border issues also involve many other countries, like Estonia, Lithuania, Belarus and Latvia. The same story continues, and Russia has been very selfish to relinquish the territories. In certain situations, like when Latvia and Estonia joined the EU, they were forced to resolve these outstanding territorial disputes with no other choice but to comply. Their government signed an agreement with Russia to give up the stolen territories, and just like we said before, Russia is not ready yet for any territory negotiations, especially with the former Soviet states. With Russia's continued thirst and greed for more territories, do you think it will finally succeed in this, and does it need to be stopped? Please don't forget to leave your suggestions and thoughts on this in the comment section below. With that, this marks the end of our video today. We hope you guys found this video interesting and especially informative. We are therefore asking you to send us those likes, as this will help improve our video status on the YouTube algorithm. More so, you can do us a little favor by sharing this video and subscribing to this channel so that you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Thank you for watching. Let's meet in the next video.